restaurant chains and pubs that serve food saw a 3% rise in sales during last year. And that's despite some big-name eateries having to close outlets. What's going on? Nina has been sampling, maybe, and taking a look as well. Good morning.
Oh, yeah, every single one. Good morning. You might have thought from the headlines that 2018 would be a year that many restaurant chains would prefer to forget. Closures were announced from the likes of Prezzo, Karl Chessell and Byron. But according to figures out this morning, sales in the sector as a whole grew by more than 3% last year. And the big pub groups which sell food, the likes of Harvester and Brewers Fayre, pub chains like that did even better. Sales there grew over 4% over the year. So what on earth is going on? Let's talk to Karl Chessell. He's a director of CGA. They're experts in the out-of-home food and drink market. Very good morning to you.
Good morning, Nina.
Last year we saw the casual dining crunch, or so we thought. Places like Prezzo, like Jamie's, losing about a third of outlets. These figures seem to fly in the face of that. So what's going on?
I think fundamentally there have been, the market isn't even, and we have seen some parts of the market have had challenges. And you're right in terms of casual dining. There's been a correction after a number of years of growth. I think when we look at the market as a whole, and at CGA, what we do is take data from 50 of the largest managed pub and restaurant groups. We can see the market itself is pretty robust, and it's a strong sample. So we've got nearly £9.5 billion of annual turnover within that cohort. And as your figures showed, actually, collectively, they've grown by around 3.4%. Now, it's worth mentioning that within that growth, there's a lot of new openings, and actually like-for-likes are a little bit more modest at around 0.8%, but it's still a really positive news story for the sector.
What's interesting is it's the pubs that sell things that are a little bit cheaper. So for some of those pub chains, you could get a meal for a family of four for sort of 15 quid, couldn't you? Is that what's behind it as well, people looking for more value at the minute?
It's not really. Actually, consumers, when they're looking at value, it's quality that they're focused on rather than price. So actually, we see a lot of people trading up, you know, things like gin, which historically have been a smaller category, have grown a lot in terms of volume, but we measure both value and volume. And what we've seen is people, instead of going for a standard gin, going for a premium gin or an artisan gin. And that's true across all categories, even categories that aren't in growth, like lager, people moving from a standard to a premium.
That's really interesting then. So drinking less but drinking a better quality. It's very interesting in general that we know that consumer confidence is lower because of the political environment at the moment, and we can't ignore what's happening this week.
Sure.
How do you think in the weeks and months going forward the hospitality industry will fare?
I think it'll fare well. I mean, I think there's cautious optimism among operators. As you talked about earlier, there are challenges, and not that the whole market isn't necessarily going to have a fantastic 2019, but generally I think the market is going to fare really well. Pubs in 2018, as you mentioned, had a phenomenal year. Like-for-likes for that cohort were up about 1.7%. The World Cup, the hot summer, a really strong December have really contributed. So I think there's optimism, but a cautious optimism.
Well, that's good compared to what we're seeing on a lot of the high street, isn't it? Interesting, then, that we are ring-fencing those experiences and choosing to spend money on going out with the family instead of buying stuff. So that's something we're seeing more of. Thank you, Karl.
No problem at all. Thank you.